Hi everyone, in this video I will be talking about creating references. You will need to know how to create a reference list for our discussion posts where I will be asking you to bring in outside sources in order to support your ideas. You may be thinking that this is another hoop that the school is making you go through. However, although it may seem like a chore, being able to create a reference list is actually very important. As we went over in our course policies page, we learned about plagiarism and that the school takes plagiarism seriously. Did you know that by not citing or referencing the materials that we bring in to support our ideas, that we are actually practicing plagiarism? So we use the reference page in order to give credit where credit is due. For example, let's say that you've been working on a research study for a really long time. You've conducted the study, you've analyzed the data, and now you've written a paper and you publicize it. Then someone else comes along and they like your ideas, they put your ideas in their paper and they publish that paper. Nowhere do they say that you had some of the ideas that they were referencing. Because of that, then, it looks like that these are their ideas as opposed to your ideas. That isn't fair, right? So that's why we need to create a reference page in order to give credit to that original owner of the work. Alright, so now that we know why we need to create reference pages, we need to know how to create reference pages. Just so you know, there are a few different types of referencing styles. For this class, I will be asking you to use the APA styling guide. Alright, so now we're going to go to the beginning stages of a research paper that I created. This paper is talking about vector transmission of pathogens. This is something that we will be talking about later in the course. The highlighted areas here are areas that need a citation because outside sources were used to support the writing. To start, make sure that below your writing you have an area to house your citations. So this is why I wrote references, because below this I will be putting my citations. And so I'm going to go down here. This is example number 1. This is what I see a lot of students do. They sometimes simply just put either that they got their reference from the textbook or that they got it from a particular website. However, as I've written here, these are incorrect references. They're incomplete. They're not properly cited. So what I will be doing is going through these 3 examples. There are 3 different types of citations that you may encounter, and to show you how exactly you will be needing to do it. Alright, so now I'm going to go down to the correct references. So as I said, the first reference here we see was the textbook. For a book, you first need to include the author or author's last names, first name, and or first and middle initials. So we can see that on the front of the textbook that we have 2 authors, Philip P. Sparling and Carrie J. Redican. So we put those in order of how they're listed. So I put first Sparling for the last name, and then the 2 initials, the PB, for his first and middle, and then I include the and sign because we have more than one author, and then I write out our second author. Then when we go to the first couple pages of the book, which I'll actually show you here. So you can see I flipped a couple pages, and you can see here, you can't really see that well, but in this bottom part, you'll see where the publication information is. So the next piece of information you'll need is the publication year, which in this case is 2017. So going back, we'll see that we write out 2017 here. And then following that, I wrote out the chapter where this information came from, which was infections. And then you put another period, and then you write in, because we found the chapter or the information in the textbook. So first, if they're on a different edition, you write out that edition. So this iHealth text is on its 3rd edition, so we write out 3rd edition. And then we write out the name of the textbook, iHealth, an Interactive Framework. We then after that put a period, and then in parentheses we put the page numbers that the chapter is in, which in this case is 316 to 342. And then finally we write out where the book was published. So it was published in New York, New York, which, like I said, it's on that first page at the front of the book towards the bottom, and then also the publishing company, which in this case it's McGraw-Hill. All right, so that's how we do our first citation from a textbook. So now we're going to be looking at an online periodical. So I'm skipping the Centers for Disease Control right now, and I'm skipping to this New York Times article. So I have the article right here. Here we go. All right, so first, just like the book, we need to know who wrote the article. So in this case, it is Donald G. McNeil Jr. So we see here, I wrote out his name. Also below his name, we see when this article was written, which was May 1st, 2018. So same thing, we write out first the year and then the date. Then we go and we see what the name of the article is, which in this case it is Tick and Mosquito Infection Spreading Rapidly, CDC Finds. So I wrote out that. Then, like I said, we got this from the New York Times. When you are getting information from a periodical, you need to make sure that that's italicized. So I did that here. And then finally, you say the website that you got it from. And in order to do that, you write retrieved from. And then you just simply copy and paste the URL link into your reference page. Okay, so that was the New York Times one. Now I'm going back to this middle one here that's in yellow, the Centers for Disease Control. So this one's going to look a little bit different. So as we can see here, going through, there's no apparent author to the text. So we then jump to, so this was from the Centers for Disease Control. So we're just going to write out Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. We then look, let's see if we can find a date. So the page was last updated May 1st, 2018. So information on this has changed. So we're going to use that. Oops, I should have May 1st here. So we'll change that. 2018, May 1st happens to be the same day that the New York Times article was written, which is kind of ironic. All right, then we need the title of the page. So we go here, and the title for this page that I used was California Vector-Borne Diseases Profile 2004 to 2016. So I have that written out. And then finally, the last piece of information is where I retrieved the information from. Since this isn't a periodical or a book, I don't need any of the other information that we had in those other two references. So I just, once again, copy the URL, and that's all I need for that one. Okay, so we're pretty much done here. First, though, we need to make sure that our references are in alphabetical order. So although we had mentioned the textbook first, author Sparling, we need to make sure it's in alphabetical order. So I'm just going to get rid of that there, add it down here. There we go. So now those are in alphabetical order. We also need to make sure that we have in-text citations too. So for the Center for Disease Control, that one's pretty easy. You can just, for that one, write CDC, the shorthand, and then the year. And same thing with all of these. So this one, we're just going to write McNeil, 2018. And finally, for Sparling and Redican, you're going to write out both of their names, Sparling and Redican. And let's see, what year was that? That was 2017, I said. Make sure that's formatted properly. There we go. Okay, and then also too, you'll see that you need to have a hanging indent. So that means that the first line is all the way to the left, and then the following lines are indented more towards the right. There are some good online sources that you can utilize in order to guide you in completing your reference list. The first is Purdue OWL, which I'll go there. So this one I particularly like, just because it breaks down the different types of references you may encounter. For instance, articles in periodicals, books, electronic sources. So it just breaks down the information really cleanly and nicely. Another one is EasyBib. This one, you kind of have to scroll through in order to get to the information you need. This one, though, I will point out, it will automatically cite things for you. I believe, though, for APA styling, you need to buy their advanced edition, but for other classes you might have, if they require MLA or Chicago styling, I'm pretty sure that they do those for free on this site. All right, if you have any questions about creating references, please ask me in the Ask the Instructor discussion forum. Otherwise, thank you for watching.